Hey, Speedwinghere here, and today I wanted to talk about the connection between liking Fire Emblem and ADHD. So, for those that don't know, I myself have ADHD. I was diagnosed many years ago as a young lad, back when it was not a very commonly understood thing. But in the modern era, more and more we are seeing an acceptance and more of an understanding of what this condition even is. Funnily enough, back in the day, if you were having any kind of tests for neurodivergence, they could only label you with one thing. That's right, they would just tick a box and say, this is what you are nothing else. So while I've never formally been diagnosed as being ASD, let's just say I would be very surprised if I wasn't somewhere on that spectrum as well. But for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to be talking about ADHD as it's what I've known the most throughout my life. So something that often happens when people talk to me that know that I have ADHD and find out that I like Fire Emblem, they go, really? Really? A slow turn-based strategy game? I thought with ADHD you have to have constant stimulation, you have to have go, 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 constantly. Well, actually, I don't really think this is the case at all. Those that possess ADHD have an abundance of dopamine receptors in their brains, which basically means every time you get a bit of that happy juice, it gets instantly sucked away by a receptor. Fire Emblem is the ultimate builder of dopamine. With Fire Emblem, there's initial planning phases where you do your unit preps, you figure out what units you want to use, what items you give them. It's a slow build up. You're micromanaging and planning everything that you need to be doing. And then comes the payoff. Big, flashy crits. Numbers. Numbers go up. Numbers feel good. That critical sound effect, even if you aren't neurodivergent, please don't lie to me and say this doesn't trigger some happy juice in your brain. This constant back and forth of setup into payoff is incredibly satisfying. Now, if you're someone that has ADHD or is aware of the traits that are present with people that possess it, you might have heard the term hyperfixation before. Hyperfixation is where your brain locks onto one thing that you are interested in and obsesses about it. It's all you can think about. You will have very little interest in doing or talking about anything else. Fire Emblem is a fantastic catalyst for this, as there are so many avenues for you to hyperfixate on. You can fixate on character customization. Which characters are you going to use? Why are you going to use them? What are you going to use with them? Supports. What supports are you going to build? In the later games, this goes up to a new level of what skills are you going to give them? Any reclass options? There is just an endless amount of data for you to get completely sunk into and hyperfixated on. Every decision you make feels meaningful in some way. The biggest struggles I find myself as someone with ADHD is the ability to manage time and stay organized, which you might think, well, in a strategy game you have to do a lot of that. But Fire Emblem kind of compartmentalizes it. You go chapter by chapter. There is a very clear, rigid structure. This is what you're doing next, and this is what's going to happen as a result of that, and here is the reward system for performing this task. It makes it very easy for you to just know exactly what's going on and crack on with it. I personally myself can feel quite overwhelmed in very open world games. Where do you go? What do you do next? What's happening? Maybe I'll do a little bit of this, but then I get sidetracked and now I want to do a bit of that. Fire Emblem provides a rigid structure. I know exactly what I'm doing next and what I'm expected to do next, and I can just crack on with it because I'm not able to be distracted with doing something else. But on the same coin of that, in real life, Fire Emblem being turn-based allows me to actually stop and take a breather. If I feel my concentration fluttering away, I'm starting to get sidetracked with something else, like maybe I need to go poke my phone, or I've decided I have to go outside for some reason or whatever, I can go, and due to the turn nature of the game, it's just sat there waiting for whenever my concentration comes back. Story in Fire Emblem. Now, People that know me will know I'm not a huge fan of story in Fire Emblem at all. I don't really care for it. Now, this might be a bit of a hot take, but I actually think Fire Emblem handles story in a more ADHD-friendly way than many other games, as the cutscenes and background about stuff going on is actually quite short and concise. You'll only have maybe a small cutscene before you're straight back into the next chapter, with the main bulk of story and character interactions coming from optional support conversations, which you can just unlock at your leisure when you actually feel like interacting with them. And if you don't feel like interacting with them at all, there's the lovely, lovely skip button. Much like ASD, ADHD brains crave stimulus, and Fire Emblem delivers it in spades. Bright, flashy colours, exciting, fast-paced animations, all surrounded with a beautiful soundtrack. Let's be honest, we can all fight for days about which Fire Emblem game is better than what, but it's a difficult conversation saying that any of the Fire Emblem games have a bad soundtrack. A common thing with people with ADHD is to engage in risky behaviours. This is perhaps due to the low dopamine situation that I talked about previously. You are looking for something to give you that big spike of dopamine. And Fire Emblem is full of this. Absolutely full of it. With the permadeath mechanic, you are constantly at risk of losing units. Combine that with things like crit rates and hit rates. Oh, 51% chance to hit sounds like 100% to me. 20% crit, that'll definitely happen. Games tend to punish aggressive, risk-heavy playstyles, whereas Fire Emblem, I find, rewards it. Can you get these objectives before enemies arrive? Will you lose out on a chest because you didn't rush fast enough to get it before the thief got there? There are constant dopamine hits from these actions. Fire Emblem allows for a safe environment for those with ADHD to channel their risk-taking behavior in a safe way without real-world consequences. I'm saying this personally from experience myself. All in all, in my opinion, Fire Emblem is an incredibly ADHD-friendly series. It has a perfect balance of structure and payoff, allowing you to hyper-fixate into something and get rewarded for doing so. Let me know down below if you agree with any of my takes. Are you someone with ADHD as well? Or maybe someone with ASD that finds solace in Fire Emblem? Please do give me your opinions. And until next time, I'll catch you later.